Have you ever felt like you were kind of stumbling around in the dark when making decisions?
Yeah.
Just hoping that you don't trip over something important.
Yeah, like you're in a maze with a blindfold on, just hoping you eventually find the way out.
Exactly. Well, on our deep dive today, we want to give you a little more light to navigate by, a way to see those choices more clearly without getting lost in the weeds of too much information.
We're going to be looking at how to think better and make smarter decisions by drawing from a whole bunch of brilliant minds.
Like from Charles Darwin to Charlie Munger, which might sound like an odd pairing at first.
But it all comes together beautifully in Peter Bevelin's book, Seeking Wisdom.
Yeah, that's our main source material today. And the mission here is to take those insights from all those different thinkers and figure out what we can all actually use in our daily lives.
No abstract theory here, just practical stuff you can put to work right away to avoid those common pitfalls.
Like how to make those decisions without getting completely overwhelmed,
Yeah.
right? Because there's so much information out there that it's easy to get paralyzed.
Right, exactly. So we're going to keep it focused on what really moves the needle.
Okay, so let's start with Bevelin himself. Now, he wasn't some, academic who just lived in his head.
Oh, not at all. His whole motivation for writing this book was incredibly down to earth.
Yeah, I love how he put it. He basically said he just wanted to be less dumb.
And he even dedicated a whole year of his life to really dive deep into this at age 42.
Wow, that's commitment.
Right. He spent that time studying, reflecting, just really trying to understand how humans make decisions.
And he noticed something super important, this core idea that making good decisions is not just about, coming up with those brilliant genius ideas.
It's more about avoiding the really terrible ones.
Okay, so it's like, don't swing for the fences every time, just avoid striking out.
Exactly. Because if you can consistently avoid those huge mistakes, you're already way ahead of the game.
It's like that saying, slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah. And in this case, the race is just, living a smarter, more fulfilling life.
And Bevelin starts with a really powerful quote from Confucius that kind of sets the stage for this whole idea. He says, "A man who has committed a mistake and doesn't correct it is committing another mistake."
That's so simple, but so profound.
Yeah.
It's like the foundation for learning and growing.
Totally. You got to recognize where you went wrong or you're doomed to repeat it.
And not just our own mistakes, too. Bevelin is big on learning from other people's screw-ups as well.
Yeah, why make the same mistakes others have already made?
Right.
Learn from their experience.
Exactly. It's like a shortcut to better decision-making.
So when we talk about those mistakes, Bevelin calls them folly.
And it's not just carelessness. He's talking about these ingrained biases we all have that warp our thinking.
Oh, like those mental shortcuts that can lead us astray.
Yeah, like associating one thing with another and making assumptions based on that, or letting our self-interest cloud our judgment.
Or like wishful thinking, right? Believing something because we want it to be true, even if it's not.
And that can lead to some serious self-deception.
You start ignoring facts and evidence because they don't fit your narrative.
Yeah, and that's a recipe for disaster.
So how do we avoid falling into those traps?
Well, Bevelin gives us this really helpful checklist of pointers to watch out for.
Oh, like red flags to keep an eye out for.
Exactly. So first up is this thing called consistency tendency. It's like we all have this inner drive to be consistent with what we've believed or done in the past, even if it's wrong.
Like that saying, staying the course, even when the course is leading you right into a ditch.
You got it. And then there's the status quo and do nothing syndrome.
So just sticking with what's familiar, even if it's not the best option.
Yep. We get comfortable and then it's hard to change.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What else is on the checklist?
Well, there's impatience, which we all struggle with.
Oh yeah, wanting everything right now. That can lead to some impulsive decisions.
Right. You don't think things through and you end up regretting it later.
And then there's envy and comparison. Those are killers.
They totally distort our thinking. We start focusing on what other people have instead of what we actually need and want.
It's like that saying, comparison is the thief of joy.
Absolutely. And then we have over-influence. This is when we let ourselves be swayed by authority figures or popular trends.
Oh, like blindly following the crowd, even if they're headed in the wrong direction.
Exactly. Or believing something just because someone important said it without really thinking it through.
And then there's the classic, starting with a desired outcome and then twisting logic to fit it.
Oh yeah, that's a recipe for biased reasoning.
And finally, there's the danger of lacking doubt.
This is when we become so sure of ourselves that we stop questioning our own assumptions.
And we all know what they say about assuming, right? It makes an answer,
Exactly.
So that's a pretty comprehensive list of potential pitfalls. But it doesn't stop there. Bevelin also talks about other factors that can mess with our thinking.
Right, like our emotions. When we're feeling super emotional, it's harder to think clearly.
Oh yeah, like when you're angry or really excited about something, your judgment can be clouded.
Exactly. And then there's the pressure to always say something, even when we don't have anything insightful to contribute.
It's like that fear of silence, you know? You just feel like you have to fill it with something.
And it can lead us to say things we don't really mean or that we haven't thought through properly.
And then, of course, there's stress and pain, which can really impact our cognitive abilities.
Oh, absolutely. When you're stressed out or in pain, it's harder to think clearly and make good decisions.
Yeah, it's like your brain is just not functioning at its best.
And speaking of not functioning at our best, Bevelin points out this really dangerous tendency,
Yeah.
sticking with a bad plan just because we're scared of change.
So it's like better the devil you know than the devil you don't.
Yeah, but sometimes that devil you know is really dragging you down. It takes guts to break free and try something new.
He's really emphasizing the need for mental strength here.
Yeah, and a willingness to step outside of our comfort zones.
And he also emphasizes the importance of having a kind of holistic framework for thinking.
Right, considering all the angles before jumping to conclusions.
And there's this powerful quote he uses from Huxley that really drives this point home. Facts do not cease to exist because they are ignored.
So true. Just because we don't want to face the truth doesn't mean it's not there.
It's a reminder to base our decisions on evidence, not just what we want to believe.
And to have the courage to change our minds when we're proven wrong.
Now, another really important area Bevelin explores is the tricky nature of our memories.
You know, we tend to think of our memories as these perfect recordings of the past.
Like a video replay, right? But it turns out they're not so reliable after all.
Not even close. Our memories fade over time, details get fuzzy.
And we might completely forget important things or just remember the wrong details.
Yeah, it's not like a computer hard drive where everything is stored perfectly.
And it's not just fading. Bevelin points out that our current knowledge can actually change how we remember the past.
So the way we think now can actually distort those old memories.
That's kind of scary, actually.
It is. It means we can't always trust our own recollections.
So what does that mean for making decisions?
Well, Bevelin says we got to be careful about relying too heavily on those memories when making choices today.
Just because something worked in the past doesn't mean it's the right approach now.
Exactly. The world changes, we change, so we got to be adaptable.
Makes sense. So where does Charlie Munger fit into all of this?
Well, Bevelin sees Munger as this master of rational thinking, and he was a hugely successful investor.
So he clearly knew a thing or two about making smart decisions.
Right. And what's interesting is that Munger firmly believed we can all train ourselves to make fewer mistakes.
Like, it's a skill you can develop.
Exactly. And he had this cool approach called the two-track analysis.
Okay, break that down for me. What's that all about?
Well, track one is pretty straightforward. You just look at the obvious factors involved in a decision.
Like the pros and cons, the potential outcomes, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. But track two is where it gets interesting. This is where you dive into the subconscious psychological stuff.
You're looking for those hidden biases and automatic reactions that can really trip us up.
Exactly. It's about understanding how our minds work, not just the logic of the situation.
And Munger recommends actually studying psychological models to get better at this.
Yeah, things like cognitive biases and how they influence our thinking.
So you're almost creating a checklist of potential mental traps to watch out for.
Right. And Munger was really big on what he called combinatorial Lollapalooza effects.
Oh, that's a mouthful. What's that all about?
Well, it's like when you have multiple biases all acting on a decision at the same time.
So it's not just one little thing that throws you off. It's a whole bunch of them working together.
And the result is usually a much bigger mistake than you would have made with just one bias.
Makes sense. Now, Bevelin takes this even further, talking about how our actions fit into larger systems.
Right. He wants us to see the bigger picture.
So it's not just about isolated decisions, but how they ripple out and affect other things.
Exactly. It's about thinking systemically.
And this ties into the idea of focusing on root causes rather than just dealing with the symptoms.
Right. He uses that great analogy of treating a fever.
So you can take medicine to lower the fever, but if you don't figure out what's causing it, the problem's not really solved.
Exactly. We got to get to the root of the problem or it'll keep coming back.
And he quotes Einstein to illustrate this point, saying, "Not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts."
Oh, that's a good one. It reminds us that some of the most important things in life can't be measured.
Like ethics, values, and those long-term consequences that are hard to predict.
Yeah, those are all crucial factors in decision making.
And finally, Bevelin stresses the importance of doing what he calls post-mortems after we've made a mistake.
So it's not about dwelling on the past, it's about learning from it.
You go back and analyze what went wrong so you can avoid making the same mistake again.
Exactly. It's like turning those mistakes into valuable learning experiences.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into Bevelin's Seeking Wisdom, it seems like the journey to better decision-making is all about continuous improvement.
Yeah, it's about constantly learning and refining our approach.
We got to understand our biases, be mindful of our memories, and draw on wisdom from all sorts of different
It's
fields.
just like Darwin and Munger did,
And maybe the most important takeaway is that we shouldn't focus so much on making perfect decisions.
because that's almost impossible.
It's more about avoiding those truly disastrous ones.
Minimize the damage, maximize the learning.
So here's something to ponder as we finish up. Think about a decision you're facing right now, big or small.
And ask yourself, how would Bevelin approach it?
Would he dig deeper for root causes?
Would he be on the lookout for those sneaky biases?
Would he question everything, even his own assumptions?
The pursuit of wisdom is a lifelong journey, folks.
And hopefully this deep dive is giving you some new tools to navigate it.
And avoid those potholes along the way.
That's right. Until next time, happy decision making, everyone.
Cheers to that.